Okay, we're going to begin now. Welcome back. It's great to have you back with us. It is my great honor to introduce to you Dr. Eviatar Matania, the head of the National Cyber Directorate for the Prime Minister's Office in Israel, reporting directly to the Prime Minister. Dr. Matania has been head of Israel's National Cyber Bureau since its establishment in 2012, operating directly under the Prime Minister. In 2015, he was appointed to also establish and supervise the new National CyberSecurity Authority. He is a world-renowned thought leader in cybersecurity, and Israel, as I'm sure you've read, is one of the great dynamic countries in cybersecurity, and he is really in the center of the Israeli cybersecurity ecosystem. So we're delighted to have Dr. Matania with us to give the next keynote. Thank you.
Good morning. Cyber attacks are overwhelming, and in parallel, cybersecurity efforts are in a constant rise. Just look around to see the number of attendants to this summit. Just think about the size of the RSA conference. Try to count the number of cybersecurity companies that have been established during the last decade. And try to imagine the budgets the corporates as well as governments have been allocating to the cyber threat during the last 5 years. Everything is in a constant rise, and we can point towards two major directions. One, all that corporates have to do in order to be more robust and to mitigate cyber attacks, and what governments are doing in order to better defend the cyber domain across sectors, and in particular, critical infrastructures. I will focus on the second effort, trying to overview in the short time that I have how a nation should forge its national cybersecurity strategy based on the Israeli experience and what we have been developed until now. So, what we developed is a three-pillar approach into how a nation should forge its national cybersecurity strategy. The first pillar is the concept of operation, meaning what and how we should operate in the cyber domain. And we developed a three-layer framework. The first and basic layer is robustness, meaning everything that should be done in order to strengthen the ability of corporates to stand and prevent most of the attacks and hostile activity against them. The second layer is resilience, meaning all that has to be done when something happens, an event, when we know about some vulnerability or some attack, how we contain it, how we recover, how we share the information regarding this event. This is event-driven layer, and there is a big difference between the two layers. Usually, I hear the word resilience, but there is a difference between robustness and resilience. Think about the human body. Most of the time, people are not sick. Most of the time, they are robust enough not to be sick. But sometimes, when they are sick, they need to see a doctor or to go to the hospital. And this is the difference. We should first build the robustness of every and each corporate, so most of the attacks and most of the hostile activity will not penetrate it. And then, when something happens, we need to go quickly as possible to the basic position, meaning resilience. And there is a difference in the role of the government between these two layers. In the first layer, the responsibility in the hands of the CEOs of the corporates. Government should regulate, build awareness, incentives, in order to have an overall robustness of all the critical processes and most of organizations of the nation. In the second layer, most of companies cannot stand alone. They do not have enough analysts and critical mass of knowledge in order to make everything which is needed. More than that, we need, in order to share information between companies and sector, we need someone to support and help. The role of the government is to build the processes and all the capabilities so we will have enough sharing of information and we will know how to support companies and corporates when they need to recover. If you do the right work in these two layers, most, if not all, of hostile activity will be prevented or contained. But unlike the healthcare sector, in cyber, we have some attackers behind everything. So if they know how we operate and what we do in these two layers, still, the high-end attackers will be able to penetrate. It will take them more time. There will be fewer attacks, but they will be able to penetrate, so we need a third layer. We call it the national defense layer, where we harness all of our capabilities and the national security agencies in order to mitigate and to retaliate to hostile activity in the cyber domain. So this is really, in very short, the concept of operation that you adopted, but a concept operation is not enough if you don't know how and what to do, how to implement it. So the second pillar of our strategy is implementation or structuring. If you look around what you see among most of the countries in the world, you can see that in the first phase of evolution, they all strengthen their current organizations of the government in order to better mitigate and tackle the new threat. Regulators started working, the energy regulator, here is the DOE, in other nations it's sometimes the Ministry of Energy, the financial regulator, healthcare regulators, transportation, they all started to build something in order to meet the needs of understanding that cybersecurity is needed and the cyber risk is a new risk which they should address. And in parallel, sectors established some sharing of information mechanism, sometimes called sectorial certs, ISACs in the United States. In several countries, these are national certs. And in addition, the security organizations of the nation also started to better understand what they need to do to bring intelligence and how they should build the power in order to mitigate hostile activity, especially concentrating in meeting the attackers. So this was the first phase of evolution of structuring, immediately followed by synchronization mechanism through establishing new organizations, sometimes nominating someone to coordinate everything as cyber tsar, sometimes even trying to build some committee, okay, in the solar system to search for the sun. Who is the sun? A committee, a cyber tsar, someone to synchronize everything. We recommended our government that we should move into the third phase of evolution, meaning to have one and only centralized cybersecurity authority responsible for everything. Because synchronization processes are very good for capacity building, for long-term coordination. But when you need 24/7 to better understand what's happening inside your country, to have the best people that analyze what's happening, to have a critical mass of knowledge, everything, and you need someone to be accountable for everything, you need a one and only authority. So we recommended our government to go straight into the third phase of evolution, and on February 15, 2015, our government adopted our recommendation, and we are now in the process of establishing this new cybersecurity authority. So we have one organization and its head, which is responsible for everything that inside our cyber domain, meaning he is accountable. When I ask during my visits all around the world, who is responsible, who is accountable for the cyber defense of the nation, usually I receive a list of names, and this is a problem. This is a problem because if cybersecurity is so important, and if it's going to be one of the major threats to our economy and to our society, we need to have accountability and to develop new disciplines. It could happen only in a new and vivid organization that this is its only mission, accountable for this, and have the critical mass of people and knowledge in order to develop it. So this is the structure. Concept of operation and structure, they should go together, because even if you have the best operational strategy and you do not implement it the right way, you cannot mitigate the threat. And if you have structure with no concept of operation, again, you don't know what to do. So this is the most important thing, these two pillars of concept of operation and structuring. But we need the third pillar to back all our capabilities, which is the capacity building. And capacity building is all that we did in order to have the right technologies and solutions for our new cybersecurity authority in order to meet the needs. And we invested a lot in developing new vehicles for our cybersecurity industry, vehicles that enable them to take risks. We take the risk together with them. We budget the risk. We give them 50 to 75% of the budget they need in order to develop new technologies when they are very risky, because usually the business community will not go for these risky projects. We build vehicles for the industry to cooperate with each other. And we establish 5 research centers together with our universities in order to lead the future thinking and development in cybersecurity. So also in 5, 10, and 20 years, we will be able to cope with the threat, to have the best technologies, so we will be much more defended. We are trying to balance the unbalanced equation currently that we have between the attackers and defenders. Currently, it is unbalanced. We do a lot and invest a lot of money and effort and thinking in how to balance this equation through breakthrough technologies and building and through the ecosystem that we'll build, that we have been being built through our industry and academy. And we also invested in human capital, because all of this cannot happen if we do not have the best and qualitative human capital. So we have a strategic program of how to develop, together with our university and Ministry of Education, the next generation of leaders, of R&D leaders in cybersecurity. Altogether, this is the ecosystem, and above all that, we are investing in a physical domain, an ecosystem in a physical domain, because sometimes even in the virtual era, we need people to work together, to meet with each other, and we are investing in a cyber park in the city of Be'er Sheva, where we put all the different points of use in order to have an ecosystem, small ecosystem of cyber. Our national cert is there. Global companies such as IBM or EMC build their cybersecurity centers there. We have the Israeli startups. We also have there our cyber research center of Ben-Gurion University. All together, we bring to one place different people, different points of view, in order that in one place we will be able to generate the real breakthrough technologies that will change the way that we defend our nation. So, just to sum up, we developed a 3-pillar strategy, a concept of operation, implementation, and structuring, and capacity building, so we will have the best capabilities to address the threat, not just these days, but also in 5 and 10 years. We are in the process of establishing all this. The new cybersecurity authority is being built and will be totally and complete operating next year. And side by side, we invest a lot in capacity building of our nation, again, in order to meet future threats and not just current threats. I believe that our method may suit most of the small to medium countries, and this is the basic elements of how a nation should forge its cybersecurity strategy. I believe that everyone which is interested, and we already have some of you interested in this, can come, and we'll be very glad to really put it in details, because it was just a very short description of what we are trying to do. Thank you.
We will now take questions from the audience, again by note card or by live mic. And I'd like to begin with one, if I may. You touched on the cybersecurity ecosystem that is so strong in Israel, second only to the US. What lessons could you share with this primarily US audience about how that cybersecurity ecosystem has grown so rapidly and helped our respective countries?
The basic elements of this is first to encourage innovation. And encouraging innovation meaning that we know that most of the projects will not succeed. They will fail. So encouraging innovation meaning that you need a culture so people are trying and fail. They try again and fail, but then they succeed. And the second element is not just the culture, that to put the vehicles, as I mentioned, so to share the risk, meaning we do not take all the risk on the government, but we share the risks, and the upside is of the innovators and the investors. We just share the risk. So nationally, you can see a lot of projects that failed, but those that succeed are enough, and they really encourage the whole economy of cybersecurity in Israel. And the third element is the ecosystem. We need researchers from universities to work together with the cybersecurity industry, and they should work together with those who should defend, whether they are corporates or governments. If we do not build the right ecosystem and combine them all to search for the right solutions, we'll not be able to really tackle the new threat.
Thank you very much. Further questions again by note card, please do submit them. Kitty is right here, and Katie is in back. They will be happy to pick those up. The first question I have, and I have two, I'll just read it straight from the note card. What state and non-state actors are the primary cyber threats to the Israeli government and Israeli commercial sector, and how are they deterred, mitigated?
Again, the beginning?
Sure. What state and non-state actors are the primary cyber threats to the Israeli government and Israeli commercial sector, and how are they deterred, mitigated? Again, I'm just reading directly from the card.
This is a question that I'm usually asked, and my answer is like this, and it's quite surprising to several other people. I'm not too interested in this, because the way that you have to build your walls and defense is regardless of who is going to be your enemy. Because if we concentrate too much on the specific state actors or non-state actors today, tomorrow we'll have others. This is a global threat. We are threatened like in each nation, from every corner on the globe. Each and every terror organization, state-sponsored attackers, crime organizations, states may reach our system, our computer system and organizations. So what we have to do is, regardless of the specific hostile activities that we see today, to build our defense, our technologies, so they will be able to meet any threat and anyone who is trying to penetrate our systems. If there are those who are trying to do it again and again, we will know what to do and how to retaliate. But this is for the defense point of view. We need to build it in another way, not concentrating on the specific attacker, but on what's happening with the attack and the campaign. That's my answer.
Thank you very much for that great answer. Cyberspace is fully connected. Israel is connected to every other country. Obviously, how do cross-border trust relationships work in your
I totally agree that since the threat is global, we need a real trust and cooperation between countries and organizations, by the way. In cyberspace, the playground is not just of states, but also of global organizations. So we need to build trust. It takes time. It takes time because even if you try to cooperate with another nation and build a trust, you're doing it, and you're not sure whether behind your back they're not trying to do something to your system because they have other interests on the table. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, we need to build trust and cooperation between nations, between police organizations, and it will take time. We see it as one of our major objectives. It's not by coincidence that I'm here, because we are building our strategic cooperation with the US, and we are doing it with other nations such as the United Kingdom and others. I believe that through this build-up of trust and cooperation, and through building a trust, we will see in the current future, it will be more than a year or two, but I think that in 3 to 5 years, we'll see a better cooperation and capabilities to really mitigate the threat globally.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Yes, one question here. Sir, you spoke about 3 pillars. You spoke about resilience and national defense. Can you speak to the roles, the different roles of law enforcement, the private sector, and the military, particularly in national defense and retaliation?
Yes. I'll try to explain it. We differentiate between mitigating attacks and mitigating attackers. The new National Security Authority that we have just established is concentrating in the attacks, in the campaign. As I mentioned before in answering one of the questions, we are interested in the campaign, in the attack, in how it behaves, what it aims toward, what it's doing, how to better contain it and tackle it. So most of what we do, the new Cybersecurity Authority is just handling the cyber attack regardless of who the attacker is. Now, behind this, what the authority is doing, we need also sometimes to use and to ask or to request our national security organizations, and I count the police as one of them, to also tackle the specific attackers. So, whatever we see is transparent to our national security organizations as well as the police. And they take it. And if needed, they know what to do. And they should know how to. I prefer to say they should know what to do in order to really tackle the specific attackers. And this is a role in Israel of the police when it comes to crime, of our internal security service when it comes to terror, and of the IDF when it's part of warfare domain. Haven't yet happened, but I believe that we will see it in the future. These are the 3 main organizations to tackle the attackers. The National Security Authority is handling the attacks, the campaigns, not going after the attackers.
Hi, Mark Mabry, Director of the National Cybersecurity FFRDC at MITRE, supporting the NCCOE at NIST. My question, sir, is the White House recently advanced a set of international cyber norms. What do you think about those? Do you think they need to be extended? And if you agree to them or agree to new ones or extended ones, what can we do as an international community to ensure they're enforced, they're followed?
I think that international norms are very important. The way that we should build them is to have a stable situation that most of countries will not just sign the agreement or treaty or the norms, but will also cope with them. And there is a difference between agreeing on the norms and signing them and cope with them and really believe in them. So Our approach is that since we want international norms, we need them to be very accurate and to have a really small number of them and not to go too broad. If you go too broad, for example, the norm of do not attack critical infrastructures sounds great, but can you define for me what critical infrastructures are? The definition in each and every nation is different. So, since the definition is different, sometimes you may find that everything is critical. In other countries, you will find that just these are critical. So, what norms to obey? What a specific countries define as critical infrastructures, or the US defines critical infrastructures? So that's why I believe that going too broad with norms will not really solve any problem. It will just be on the table. We prefer the approach to have very narrow and accurate definition of norms that when I'd give you an example, the integrity of financial data. And I'm not talking about the ability to steal money. I'm talking the integrity of financial data. Just as an example, you may take another norm. But what I try to say is that if you will succeed to define 3 to 5 accurate norms that everyone may agree with, we will have all the countries in the world signing such a treaty, and then it will be the start point of trying to leverage it into more and more norms and then enforcement. We should begin with something which really relevant to everyone and then go on with other norms. So this is my approach, my country's approach to this. And regarding enforcement, big questions. Since we have left with no time, I really am going to use it and not answer the problem of enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.